Once upon a time, in a village called Obodo, surrounded by a golden savanna, there lived a people deeply connected to the land and the traditions of their ancestors. The village was not large, but it was strong. From the bustling marketplace to the quiet farms, life flowed in a rhythm that mirrored the flow of nature. The people lived by the wisdom of their elders, and sacred oaths held the community together. The head of the village was a young woman named Zina, whose beauty was said to shine like the sun rays at dawn, warm and captivating to all who saw her. But Zina was not just beautiful, she was known for her integrity, a woman whose word carried weight among her peers. Yet, despite her outer grace, Zina held a secret deep within her heart, an oath from her youth that threatened to unravel the life she had built. Her mother, Adama, was a respected healer, wise in the ways of the earth and sky. Adama had taught Zina the knowledge of herbs and the sacred connections between their people and the spirit of the land. But even Adama did not know the depth of the secrets her daughter kept. One sunny afternoon, the village of Obodo bustled with joy and songs. It was the wedding of Naina, Zina's younger sister, and the entire village had gathered to celebrate. The air was filled with scents of goat's meat, spicy pepper soup, and freshly pounded yam. The villagers danced, their vibrant traditional attire glowing in the golden light of the setting sun. Zina stood at the edge of the celebration, her face alight with happiness for her sister. She clapped along with the crowd as Nena and her new husband shared their first dance as husband and wife. But amidst the joy, a shadow loomed. Ike, the wisest man in the village, watched from a distance, his eyes fixed on Zina. He was known for his strength and power, his cattle field stretching far beyond the village borders. To many, his wealth made him an ideal husband. But Ike did not seek love. He sought possession, and Zina had become the object of his desire. As the music slowed down, Ike rose, commanding the attention of everyone's present. He strode to the center of the gathering, his presence filling the space like a storm on the horizon. His voice boomed over the quiet crowd. I have come not only to celebrate with Nena and her husband today, he began, his gaze locking onto Zina, but to announce my intention. Zina, daughter of Adama, it is my wish to take you as my wife. The crowd murmured in shock. Women covered their mouths with their hands, and the men exchanged glances. It was an unexpected declaration, one that carried the weight of Ike's power and influence. Zina's heart raced. She had hoped these days would never come. Flicked towards Obi, who stood on the outskirts watching helplessly. With every eye upon her, Zina struggled to find her voice. Ike, I cannot marry you, she stammered. Ike's smile faded, and the silence that followed was thick with tension. He looked at Zina as if he were weighing her words, deciding whether to be angered or amused. I will give you time to reconsider, he said finally, his voice dark with warning. But know this, Zina. I am not the man that takes no for an answer. The village remained alive with celebration, but Zina's joy had fled. As the stars twinkled in the night sky, she slipped away from the festives, her mind clouded with worry. In the quiet of their compound, Zina sat with her mother, Adama, a woman who had seen many seasons and carried the wisdom of them all. Adama's eyes were heavy with knowledge as she watched her daughter, knowing the weight that had settled on her shoulders. Zina, her mother began, you are at a crossroad. Ike is not a man you can easily turn away. But before you decide, there is something you must remember. Zina looked up confused. What do you mean, Mama? Adama sighed deeply. Years ago, when you were just a girl, you made an oath at the shrine. Do you remember it? You promised something to the spirits in exchange for their protection. Zina's heart clenched as the memories came flooding back. The old shrine hidden deep in the savannah, the vow she had made in her youth, thinking it's a game, a secret oath that no one would ever speak of again. I remembered, she whispered. Adama's voice grew firm. That oath forbids you from marrying anyone unless you reveal the truth to the elders. If you break that promise without honoring the spirits, there will be consequences, not just for you, but for our family. Do you understand? Zina's mind swirled with fear. How could she tell the elders? The truth would bring disgrace to her family, and how could she bear to turn away from Obi, the man she loved? Later that night, as the village quieted, Obi came to see her. They met in the shadows near the edge of the forest, where no one could overhear them. His face was tense with worry, but his eyes softened when he saw her. Zina, he said gently, taking her hands in his. I know what Ike said today, but you do not have to marry him. I will fight for you. I will protect you. Tears welled in Zina's eyes. Obi, it's not just about Ike. There is something you do not know, something that could ruin everything. Obi's brow furrowed, but he did not let go of her hands. Whatever it is, we will face it together. I love you, Zina. Nothing will change that. His words were like balm to her aching heart, but Zina knew that love alone might not be enough to save them. Days passed, and the joy of Nina's wedding faded into memories. But the shadow of Ike's proposal lingered. He was a man of action, and when he did not get what he wanted, he made others suffer for it. Obi began to feel the weight of Ike's influence. The village that had once welcomed him with open arms began to grow cold. People who had once greeted him warmly turned away, avoiding his gaze. His hunting trips became more dangerous as traps he had set were mysteriously disturbed and the game seemed to disappear. Rumors spread that Ike had spoken to the elders, whispering lies about Obi, claiming he was unfit, a poor man with no future to offer Zina. And was, Ike's threat began to grow more direct. Late one night, as Obi returned from the forest, he found the small hut ransacked, his few possessions scattered about. It was a warning, one that did not need words. But Obi was not a man to be easily broken. He had grown up with little, and he had learned to survive. More importantly, his love for Zina gave him strength. I will not let Ike win, he vowed to himself, though the path ahead seemed uncertain. As days passed, the wind of Obodo village carried whispers of Ike's power. The once jovial atmosphere now felt thick and uneasy, as though the land itself sensed the brewing storm. Zina found no solace. For every corner she turned, eyes were upon her, watching, waiting to see what her next move will be. Ike, never a man to be denied, took his plans to the heart of the village, the elders' council. In Obodo, the words of the elders was law, a sacred decree that even the spirits respected, and Ike knew how to wield influence with precision. He made his way to the compound where the elders sat. As the elders gathered beneath the ancient Iroko tree, Ike stepped forward, a confident smile playing on his lips. His voice, rich and persuasive, echoed through the space. Esteemed elders, he began, bowing respectfully. I come not as a mere villager, but as one who seeks the betterment of Obodo. Our village stands at the brink of prosperity. I have wealth beyond measure, lands that stretch far and wide. But for Obodo to rise to its full potential, we must uphold our traditions. The elders nodded softly, their eyes gleaming with curiosity. Chief Unduka, the eldest among them, sat at the center, his gaze sharp despite his years. He had seen men like Ike before, men who believed that wealth could bend the will of the gods. Ike continued, it is our custom, our sacred tradition, that a woman of Zina's standing marries someone of equal power and wealth. I have chosen her, not only because of her beauty, but because she is deserving of a future filled with abundance. If you support this union, I vow to bring prosperity to Obodo, new lands, cattle, and trades that will enrich our people. There was a murmur among the elders. The allure of Ike's promises was tempting. The village had faced difficult seasons, droughts, poor harvest, and the threats of neighboring tribes encroaching on their lands. But Chief Unduka's face remained impassive, his mind turning over the words with caution. In long silence, Chief Unduka spoke. Ike, wealth may build walls and fortresses, but it cannot build peace or love. We will consider your words, but remember this: tradition is not a tool to be wielded for personal gain. It's a bond between our people and the spirit who guides us. Ike bowed again, though his smile was more forced this time. I trust in the wisdom of the council, he said, his voice low with a hint of menace. Meanwhile, in the quiet of the savannah, Obi sought refuge. The weight of Ike's influence pressed down on him, suffocating his hope. His heart was heavy with love for Zina, but he knew that without the elders' blessings, his love could be crushed beneath the force of tradition. It was in this state of turmoil that Obi sought out Chief Unduka. The old man had always been a beacon of wisdom in the village, a leader who had seen many rise and fall through the years. Obi found Chief Unduka sitting beneath the same Iroko tree where the elders met, his gaze lost in distance as he watched the cattle graze. Chief Unduka, Obi began, kneeling before him with respect. I have come to seek your guidance. The old man gestured for him to sit. Speak, my son, what troubles you? Obi's voice trembled with emotion. It is Zina. I love her so much, with all my heart, but Ike seeks to take her as his wife. He uses his wealth to sway the elders, to make them believe that he is the only one worthy of her. But I cannot sit by and watch her be taken away from me. If Unduka studied the young hunter, his eyes softened by the innocence of Obi's love, but hardened by the realities of the world. Obi, love is a powerful force, but it is not the only one. The ways of our people are old and deeply rooted. To divide them is to risk not just your happiness, but the balance of the village. Obi clenched his fist. But how can I let go? How can I give her up for a man like Ike, who cares nothing for her heart? If Unduka sighed deeply, patience, Obi. I have seen men lose everything because they rushed into battle without thinking. Ike's power is great, but the spirit do not favor the wealthy. You must tread carefully. The path ahead will not be easy, but love that endures hardship is a love that can never be broken. Obi nodded, though the advice weighed heavily on him. How could he remain patient while Ike tightened his grip on Zina's future? For Zina, the days dragged on in a haze of uncertainty. The village woman, who once whispered kind words of admiration, now gossiped behind her back. Many envied her, believing that marrying Ike would bring her a life of luxury and ease. But they did not know the truth. They did not know the secret that could destroy everything. At night, Zina sat with her mother, Adama, in their small hut. The flames from the earth flickered, casting shadows on the walls as the silence between them grew heavy. Mama, Zina whispered, her voice cracking under the strain. What should I do? I cannot marry Ike, but if I tell the others the truth. Adama's face was drowned with worry. She knew the weight of the secret her daughter carried, for it was she who had been there when the oath was made. But as a mother, her heart ached to protect her daughter from the pain that awaited her. You must think of the family, Zina, Adama said softly. Our name, our place in this village, it depends on the choices you make. If you break the oaths, the spirit will punish us all. But if you marry Ike, your life will be secured. There will be no shame, no disgrace. Zina's eyes filled with tears. But there will be no love, he whispered. Adama reached out and took her daughter's hand, her grip firm but tender. Sometimes, my daughter, we must sacrifice our own happiness for the sake of others. Zina pulled her hand away. Her heart turned between duty and desire. She knew her mother was right, but how could she choose a life without love? As days passed, the pressure mounted. Ike's influence over the elders grew, and Obi's visit to Zina became fewer, as he feared drawing more attention to their secret love. Zina was trapped, caught between the love she had for Obi and the duty she owed to her family and the village. The village of Obodo, once peaceful and harmonious, was now simmering with tension. The elders would soon make their decision, but no matter the outcome, Zina knew that her life and lives of those she loved would never be the same. Weeks had passed since he publicly announced his intentions, and yet Zina had not agreed to marry him. Her hesitation, once a minor inconvenience, was now an insult he could no longer tolerate. Ike had always been a man who got whatever he wanted, and this time would be no different. In a calculated move, he hatched a sinister plan to rid himself of Obi, the humble hunter who had dared to challenge his claim to Zina's heart. Obi was a thorn in his side, the obstacle that stood between him and the ultimate power. Late one night, under the cover of darkness, Ike's loyal men crept to the village harvest house. The harvest house, filled with harvests that sustained the people through the lean times, was a sacred place. To steal from it was to steal from the entire village, a crime that demanded the harshest punishments. Ike's men planted evidence of theft, carefully arranging a trail that would lead directly to Obi. By dawn, the accusation had already begun. The village square buzzed with outrage as word spread like wildfire. Obi, the quiet hunter who had always lived a simple, honest life, was now being accused of stealing from the harvest house. The elders were called upon to investigate as Obi stood before the elders' council. The village gathered to witness the proceedings. His hands were bound, and his face, though calm, showed the weight of the injustice that had been placed upon him. Chief Unduka, though troubled, sat among the elders, his heart heavy with doubt. He had known Obi since he was a boy, and the idea that he would steal was ridiculous. Yet, the evidence seemed strong. Ike stood nearby, his arms crossed and smug expression on his face, knowing that he had orchestrated everything perfectly. One of the elders, his voice cold and authoritative, spoke. Obi, the evidence before us is clear. The grain was stolen, and your tracks were found leading away from the harvest house. Do you have anything to say in your defense? Obi lifted his chin, his voice steady, though it trembled with emotion. I am innocent. I have never taken anything that was not mine, nor would I steal from the people of this village. Someone seek to frame me. His words fell on deaf ears. Ike stepped forward, his voice filled with false sympathy. It's a shame, truly. Obi was a promising young man, but the law is the law, and the punishment for theft is clear. He must be banished from Obodo so that the peace and trust within our village may be restored. The elders murmured in agreement. Ike had them under his thumb, and it seems nothing could halt the tide that was pulling Obi towards his doom. From the back of the crowd, Zena stepped forward, her face pale and her heart pounding in her chest. She could not let this happen. Obi was innocent, and the thought of him being cast out because of her silence was too much to bear. Wait, she cried, her voice cracking as she stood before the elders and the gathered villagers. All eyes turned to her, including Ike's, whose expression flattered for the first time. Zina, what is the meaning of this? Chief Uluka asked. Zina took a deep breath, her hands shaking. She had kept the secret buried for so long, hoping that it would never have to come to the light. But now there was no choice. She had to speak the truth. Years ago, she began, her voice barely above a whisper. My father borrowed money from Ike's father. We were starving. The harvest had failed. We had nothing. My father, he was desperate. Ike's father lent us the money, but when the time came to repay the debt, we could not. My father had no means. The crowd went silent, hanging on every word. So, she continued, her eyes filled with tears. An agreement was made. In exchange for the debt, I saw an oath that I would marry into Ike's family. It was the only way to save us. Kifunuka's voice was grave as he spoke. Zina, why did you not speak of this sooner? Zina wiped her tears from her cheek. I thought I could find another way, but now I see that I cannot stay silent. Obi is innocent. This, this is all happening because of me. The weight of our words settled over the crowd like a heavy blanket. The truth had been revealed, but it was not enough to save Obi, not yet. The others conferred in hushed tones, their faces drawn and troubled. Tradition was tradition, and Zina's oath was sacred. Though they were shaken by the revelation, the outcome seems inevitable. Chief Unuka raised his hand for silence, and the village waited with bated breath. This is a matter of great seriousness, he said slowly. Zina, your oath was made in good faith to preserve your family's honor. However, the law of our village are clear. An oath, once made, must be fulfilled. You must marry Ike or face dishonor. Zina's heart sank, the weight of the words crushing her spirit. It was as she had feared. Despite the truth, despite everything she had revealed, tradition would prevail. She would be forced to marry Ike, and her family's name would be saved, but at the cost of her happiness. And as for Obi, Chief Unuka continued, the council had considered the evidence. Though this new information had come to light, it does not change the fact that the theft occurred. Obi, you are hereby sentenced to banishment from Obodo. You will leave at dawn. The village erupted into gasps and murmurs, but none louder than Zina's cry of despair. Obi, the man she loved, was being torn from her life forever. Ike, standing tall and victorious, watched as his plans fell into place. He would have Zina, and Obi will be gone, cast out like a criminal. All that was left was to wait for the sun to rise. As night fell, Zina sat alone by the fire, her heart heavy with sorrow. The village that had once been her home now felt like a prison, its tradition suffocating her every breath. Obi was to be banished, and in the morning, her fate to be sealed with Ike. But even as the flames flickered, a spark of defiance began to grow within her. Zina knew that the path ahead was filled with danger, but she could not live a life without love. She had to find a way to break free from the chains of tradition, to save herself and Obi before it was too late. The night before Obi's banishment, the village lay in uneasy silence, but beneath the calm, a storm of emotion brewed in the hearts of the people. Zina had spent hours at the village shrine, praying to the ancestors, pleading for guidance. She knew that the dawn would bring not only Obi's exile, but also her own fate, forever tied to a man she could never love. The first ray of sunlight touched the savannah. A ripple of commotion stirred in the village. Obi, determined, stood before the elders and the gathered crowd. His eyes, filled with a mix of courage and sorrow, turned to face Ike, who stood arrogantly by the side of the council. Before I am banished, Obi said, his voice strong, I invoke the trial of integrity. A murmur ran through the crowd. The trial of integrity was an ancient custom, rarely invoked. It was a sacred test, designed not to measure a man's strength or wealth, but his heart, his soul, and his commitment to the village's value. I accept, Ike said, stepping forward, his voice dripping with overconfidence. Let the trial begin. The trial was simple in its concept, yet profound in its execution. Both men would spend the next 3 days living among the people, performing acts of service, generosity, and humility. It was a test of character, not power, a test to determine who was truly worthy of standing beside Zina and representing the village's core values. Ike, secured in his wealth and status, immediately set out to win favor by showering the villagers with gifts. He distributed sacks of grains, coins, and fine clothes, promising even more riches if the people supported him. He threw feasts, inviting the elders to dine at his table, and boasted of prosperity he could bring to Obodo. But despite his outward generosity, Ike's actions were hollow. He sought out only to manipulate, using his wealth as a weapon to buy loyalty. Behind the gifts and promises, the villagers could see his true nature, one of pride, greed, and entitlement. His heart was not in the actions, and the people felt it. Obi, on the other hand, had no riches to offer. He had only his hands, his skills, and his deep love for the village. He spent his days helping the elders repair their homes, teaching the children how to hunt and gather, and tending to the sick. His kindness was quiet, his actions small but deeply felt. He did not boast or seek praise. He simply did what he had always done, lived according to the village's true value of humility, service, and compassion. Word spread quickly. The people began to whisper among themselves, noticing the stark contraction between the two men. While Ike flaunted his wealth, Obi quietly won their hearts through his sincerity. By the end of the third day, the village had changed. Ike, once referred to for his wealth and power, now stood as a man exposed. His attempts to bribe and manipulate had failed to inspire genuine loyalty. The villagers had seen through his facade, and the elders, including Chief Unduka, could no longer ignore the truth. Chief Unduka called the elders together. They had watched both men closely, and one tradition held great weight. The integrity of the village value could not be ignored. We must decide, Chief Unduka said. We have seen the actions of both men. This trial was meant to reveal their true nature. And now we must ask ourselves, who is truly deserving of Zina's hand? The village gathered once again, the air thick with anticipation. Ike stood tall, his confidence shaking but not broken. He still believed that his wealth and influence would carry the day. Obi stood opposite him, calm and resolute, his fate now in the hands of the elders. Chief Unduka rose, his eyes scanning the crowd before finally resting on the two men. He spoke slowly, his words deliberate and weighty. We, the Council of Elders, have observed the trial of integrity. We have watched both men closely and have seen the nature of their hearts. He paused, letting the weight of his words settle over the crowd. Though Ike has wealth and power, we have seen that his actions are driven by pride and self-interest. He seeks not love, but to possess. And while Obi has no riches, he has shown us the true spirit of generosity, humility, and service. His heart is pure, and his love for Zina is genuine. Ike's face darkened, his hands clenched into fists. He had never expected the elders to turn against him, but the truth was undeniable. Chief Onduka continued, his voice unwavering. The trial of integrity had shown us all what truly matters. Obi is the one who has earned the right to be with Zina. He embodied the value we hold dear. The village erupted in cheers. The people, who had long admired Ike's wealth, now saw him for what he truly was, a man corrupted by pride. And they saw Obi, the humble hunter, as the man who represented the heart of the village. Zina, her heart pounding with joy, rushed to Obi's side. Tears of relief streamed down her face as she embraced the man she loved. The weight of the oath that had burdened her for so long was finally lifted. She had fought for love, and love had won. Ike, sitting with anger, turned on his heels and stormed out of the village. His power broken, his influence shattered. He would never again be respected in the village, for his true nature had been revealed for all to see. As the sun set over the savannah, the village celebrated not just the triumph of love, but the triumph of integrity. Zina and Obi stood hand in hand, their love a symbol of hope and resilience. And so, the villagers learned a valuable lesson that day, that true worth is not measured by wealth or power, but by the strength of one's character, by the love they give, and by the value they uphold. Ike, once the wealthiest man, and most feared man in the village, stood with clenched fist. He had lost not only Zina, but the respect of the village. Without a word, Ike turned on his heel, his one proud shoulders hunched in defeat, patted the crowd silently as he walked away, leaving the village he had once ruled over. No one stopped him, no one begged him to stay. He was alone in his disgrace, shamed and stripped of all influence. As Ike disappeared into the fading lights, the villagers began to whisper, but their whispers were no longer about him. They turned instead to Zina and Obi, who stood hand in hand. The weight of their trials finally lifted. With Ike gone, the village erupted into celebration. Zina, her heart finally free of the burdens she had carried for so long, smiled at Obi with tears of joy in her eyes. They had fought against the odds, against tradition, and against the weight of a family debt that had once threatened to destroy their love, and now they stood victorious. The elders, including Chief Unduka, gathered around the couple, offering their blessings. May your union be one of love and peace, Chief Unduka said, his voice filled with warmth. You have shown us all the true meaning of integrity. The village will honor your love as a testament of what we hold dear. The drummers began to play, the redeeming beats echoing across the savannah as the celebration commenced. The villagers, once divided, now danced together, united by the joy of seeing love triumph over corruption. A few days later, as the village returned to its daily rhythm, Zina and Obi were wed in a ceremony that was simple but filled with love. Unlike the grand display Ike had once promised, their wedding was not about wealth or status. It was about two souls coming together, bounded by integrity and mutual respect. Obi and Zina's union was a new beginning for the village, a symbol of hope, integrity, and the strength of character. As they walked hand in hand through the village, the people cheered for them, not because they were rich or powerful, but because they were loved, respected, and above all, true to themselves. And so, the story of the broken oath came to its close, not with the triumph of wealth, but with the triumph of love, honor, and humility. If you enjoyed this story of the broken oath and believe in the power of truth, love, and unity, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel for more inspiring stories. And don't forget to share it with your friends to spread the message. Naija Life Story, bringing life to every tales. Thanks for watching. Bye.